Hey everybody, so before this video gets started, I would definitely just recommend that you read through one of the walkthroughs that I list in the description and follow the steps very carefully, as well as watching this video before you disassemble any of these EML throttle bodies, just so that you avoid any damage and headaches. Thanks.
Okay, so back to fun mechanical stuff. I've done some light research, and it turns out the EML light and the limp mode that the transmission is going to is most commonly caused by the electronic throttle bodies that these cars have. This is old 80s technology, and they're well known for failing at about 100,000 miles, and the car has 128,000 miles. So, looking into it, it's actually a pretty simple job to clean these things up. You just need to get them off the car, take this assembly apart, clean out all the carbon buildup that's in there, clean the brushes, clean the commutator. There's some deeper little gear things in there that you can check out and re-grease if you feel the need to go that deeply. Seems like it's not that necessary in most cases. So what we're going to do is get them off and get them cleaned. One thing that I did notice right away is that this vacuum line underneath that vacuum nipple is a rip, right? Yeah, you can see that dark spot right there. So that could be another problem that we're having, but I'll go ahead and just get them taken off and cleaned up. Thankfully, there are a ton of write-ups on cleaning these throttle bodies up, so it should be a pretty quick and straightforward job.
Okay, so here we are, we're rebuilding, or just cleaning, really, the little DK motors. The DK motors, or the electronic throttle bodies, as most people would call them, for the E31 850. So I've already cleaned one up, and I went ahead and replaced all the fasteners because they were Phillips head, which is pretty terrible. So I've just gone ahead and put Allen's on there, and I've got another set for this one. Now you might notice these two throttle bodies are not the same. If you look at them dead on, they have different flanges, and they have different part numbers. So I'm not sure which one is true to my car, because I looked up I went on Real OEM and looked up the part number for my year and my month of manufacture, and it's another part number. So neither of these are technically the correct part number for the car. And perhaps the fact that they are different, one to the other side, maybe that's causing an issue. But either way, I'm going to clean them up, throw them back on the car, see how we do. First off, on the first one, I took some pictures, I took some brief videos, I'll show you, but the inside did have a good amount of corrosion. There was corrosion on the little wipers that actually go around the potentiometer in here to basically give you throttle position data to the DME. So those are all cleaned up, and then of course the actual commutator had some wear, but most of all, one of the brushes in this one was actually completely stuck. So took some cleaning and got it all freed up, and now we're all good to go there. So the last thing I'll do is I'll just clean the actual butterfly up.
Okay, so here's the first DK motor pulled apart. This is how I like to organize my bolts when I take new things apart. I just draw the flange or whatever I'm taking apart. So first you pull off the main housing, and you pull this guy out, and you can see it's actually not horrifically dirty. A little bit of wear on there. The big thing that I did notice is one of my brushes was stuck. So this one actually actuates freely. It's not right now because I have it bound up on the spring. If I get it, there we go. If I get it off the spring, you can see that one's totally free. This one, once you get it off the spring, it's just completely stuck. So you can see it's out right now, and then I push it back in, and it just sticks. Push it all the way in, and it just sticks. So I think that was probably part of our problem. So I'll get these tracks and these brushes cleaned out super well, and that should at least alleviate one problem. Now down in here, the back side of this goes into here, and this is like a little potentiometer type thing. And these little tracks look pretty clean. They do look a little bit grooved out. I hope that's not a problem. And then our little fingers on these guys actually do look a little bit corroded, so I'll get these all super cleaned up with some electrical cleaner and these little cotton swabs. And then we have a bunch of corrosion built up in the actual aluminum housing here, and then we have a good amount of carbon crud right in there. So I'll get this all super clean, put it all back together, and then take the next one apart. these little finger contacts I got pretty clean just with a little bit of electrical cleaner. Got all the corrosion out of there as well with the swabs. I did get both of the brushes super free. At least the stuck one is now free. The free one is still free. Just, again, by spraying a bunch of electrical cleaner in there and then working the brush back and forth over and over again with a nice little wooden dowel so you don't mess the brush up. And then the commutator, I sanded with 600 grit. And there's quite a lip on there. I wasn't able to get all of this dark, like darkened copper taken off, but I'm just going to call this good for now. Since this is a relatively quick and easy job, I'm just going to see if this does it. I think the main problem was probably the brush there on this side.
So I'll post a link in the video description. There's a very good website I found called Shogun, and he has a ton of good information on rebuilding these things and cleaning these things. So if you don't want to just go out and buy new ones, which good luck finding new ones, but if you want to look into cleaning these things yourself, it's a good resource. Now, one of the do-it-yourself articles I looked at mentioned this little plastic button. That one did not have this. And he called it an anti-tamper button because he said after he pried on it, it just broke. So the fact that that's on there makes me think that no one has ever been inside of this one, which is a pretty good sign. So we might see a pretty good buildup of carbon inside of this one, so that'll be cool. Just broke right off. So, the throttle body has never been cleaned. Good to know. I've already removed all of the screws, so all we're going to do is gently wiggle this. That'll break the seal loose. And then before we remove this housing, I'm going to reach in here and hold down on the rotor, or whatever you call it, with this piece of wood. That way, we avoid damaging the brushes. Just like that. So right away we have a ton of carbon buildup in here. You can see a little bit in this housing. Good amount of aluminum corrosion built up on the seal, so the seal's not doing a good job anymore. There's the guts. Now before we pull this guy out, we're going to push the brushes back. That will keep them from getting damaged. Alright, brushes are out of the way, so let's go ahead and remove this guy. Oh yes indeed. So this is all carbon buildup on here. Pretty nasty. Tons of it. Look at all that. You can smell it. So let's go ahead and remove this. Break this loose very gently. Looks like our seal got caught. So these seals are going to need some serious cleaning. That one's got quite a bit of corrosion as well. So basically once you get to this point, the only thing you have to do is get all this carbon removed. Now you can do it either with cotton swabs or you can use electrical parts cleaner. What I have is I'm using mass airflow cleaner because it's good for very sensitive mass airflow sensors. So it ought to be good enough to clean all this gunk out of here. I would, however, not spray it directly onto the potentiometer here just in case you damage the film. So when I am spraying the brushes, I'm either holding my hand over that or you can tape it off to be double safe. Just in case it damages that film. I'm not sure how sensitive this stuff is. As far as the brushes go, on this one, let's see if they're free. Yep, so these brushes are nice and free, so I don't have to worry about cleaning them too thoroughly, but I will get as much of this carbon out of here as I can. On the armature, we're going to blast it off, get all the carbon off of here, and then we're going to take some 600 grit just in a thin strip. This is the strip I used on the other part. Just wrap it around. Oops. And you don't want to place pressure directly onto the paper. You want to just pinch it like this and just run back and forth, just like that. If you were in a hurry, you could throw this in a drill on either end and just spin it gently while you're using this. But I'm just taking my time here. I'm not in a big hurry today. You have to be extremely careful when you're working around these little guys, because if you bend one, you're going to screw it up and it won't make contact with the wheel, and then you're not going to get a throttle position reading on this side of the car, and you'll get an EML light and the car won't work. So that's as far as I'm going to go on the commutator here. I didn't get the grooves completely taken out, and that is because there are already grooves built up in the brushes, wherever they are. So you can see the brushes, if I knock one of them out, you can see the brushes have pretty deep grooves inside of them. So as long as those grooves match those grooves, it still should get pretty good communication. We just wanted to knock all that gross carbon off of there and clean it up a little bit. So now that everything's clean, the brushes are freely moving, and we got rid of all the corrosion that was down in there, and we even cleaned up the little wiper arms. I just put this in there to keep debris from falling down in there. I think everything should be pretty okay. We do know that this throttle body has never been opened up before, so that's pretty cool. Don't know if it was off of another car or not, but the fact that these two don't match is the main thing that bothers me at this point. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this. Reassemble that one. I'm going to use a little bit of silicone lubricant on all of the rubber seals to make sure that they get a good seal again. And yeah, we're going to send it. I should mention at this point, you can take these 4 Torx bits out and you can take this whole part off. You will also, I believe, have to take this screw loose and pull this arm off. But inside of here, there are some gears, and they can actually dry out and rust if they don't have any grease on them. But the fact that this arm still has a bunch of grease on it that's not super kicked up, I think it's probably okay, so I'm not going to worry about it. I didn't take the other one apart that far either, so I'm just going to leave it for now. If we continue to have issues, then I will take it apart again. So there we go. A couple of clean electronic throttle bodies designed in the 80s. Let's go see if this made any improvement.
So the throttle bodies are ready to go on, and all of the crankcase ventilation stuff came in today, so we'll go ahead and throw that on. Now that the throttle bodies are out of the way, these grommets will be very easy to change. Should speed things up. So I started it, and the EML light came on immediately, which before it wasn't on as soon as you started the car. You would start it, and it would run okay for a minute, and then it would come on. So now it's coming on immediately, and the car is blowing a ton of oil out the exhaust, and there's a really rich fuel smell up at the front of the car. So I was looking around, and I found that this side, this return line coming from the fuel rail, is soaking wet, and there's a lot of gas in there. And that line is super torn up. You can see it just looks like crap. So I'm going to replace that line. The rest of them look okay, honestly. I can't see any other issues in here so far. So I'm going to replace that tiny little piece of line and see if that fixes it. So I got the line off. Wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but it is off. You can see this thing is just super trashed. It was cracking and torn. I did tear it a little bit more getting it off, but it was completely gone. So I've got some new gates green shield. I think that's what they call this. Yeah, Gates green shield. Sitting here in the heater, getting soft. Once it is soft enough, I'll cut a little length of it off. I'll use some silicone lubricant. Spray that down onto the two fittings down there. You can see them both right there facing each other. And then I'll shove it as far onto the lower one as I can until it passes the upper one, and then we'll shove it back up the other way. And then I'm going to get a couple of new hose clamps. So that line is replaced now. I got some new, stronger style stainless steel clamps on there. I realize that is just the return line, so it's probably not going to change how the car runs, but that's one more fuel leak eliminated. Okay, so we're still getting the EML error code. So I have the ignition turned on, and I have the gas pedal depressed just a little bit with a stick. And you can see this throttle body is open slightly. This one is not at all. I have good news. I'm an idiot. When I put this throttle body back together, I forgot to connect the brushes. So that one's open, and that one's open. So let's throw it all back together and see if it runs. Okay, take 3 or 4. Oh boy, fingers crossed. Shoot. Hey, EML light went away. Oh hey, that's much better. Look at that. That's a lot better. Still pretty cold, not gonna rev it too hard, but hey, way better. Way better. Lots of oil up here. I don't know what that's all about. Yeah, but it runs alright.
So that was kind of an abrupt ending to this video, but I've been driving the car more and more ever since I fixed these throttle bodies. It has been running fantastically. It hasn't had a single issue since I cleaned the throttle bodies up, so that was definitely the problem that was plaguing it before. The more that I drive it, the less that it smokes. I think the fact that it was sitting for about 9 to 10 years was probably the reason that it was smoking so badly. I think that the valve guide seals were probably getting a little bit hard, and I think that the piston rings were probably kind of seized a little bit into the pistons. So the way it is now, you start it up and it smokes for a minute or two, and then once it's up to temperature, it doesn't smoke at all. You get a little bit of that BMW oil burning smell like every BMW that I've ever owned has had, but it's nothing concerning, and it definitely doesn't shoot any smoke out when you are actually driving it. The next step in the restoration of this car is going to be to repair the suspension and steering. I have a new video coming out pretty soon on how to tighten the steering up on an 850 steering box, so look out for that, and thanks for watching.